and this is why Tucker Carlson is referred to as an agent of Satan. Welcome back to the 511 show, and today we got another video from our good buddy Tucker Carlson, or some people call him Carlson, as a lot of people have been calling him recently. Over the course of the last calendar year, Tucker has really truly exposed himself in more ways than one as really an enemy to all things conservative and Christian. And the reason why I say that is, if you guys remember, this all kind of started, I guess, not say started, but definitely blew up with the whole argument between him and Ted Cruz earlier on in the year, where he was doing everything he possibly could to make Ted Cruz seem like that he was in opposition to America's best interest because he supports the nation of Israel, right? And that kind of led to Tucker being an open and hostile enemy of the nation of Israel, accusing them of murdering children and women, accusing them of genocide, accusing them of not being America's ally, all these things that he's been pushing over the last several months to get primarily Christians, other right-wing conservative Christians, to view the nation of Israel as an enemy. Now, the reason why I mentioned earlier the reference to Qatar is because people have long alleged over the last several months that Tucker Carlson was getting paid off by the nation of Qatar, that has a lot of money, by the way, to basically being an agent for that nation. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought to myself, well, I mean, there's a lot of people who are anti-Semitic who aren't exactly in line with, you know, the Islamic regime or the Islamic way of doing things. However, that is no longer the case. Tucker has done many interviews openly over the last couple of months stating how much he loves Qatar. He's talking about wanting to buy property in Qatar. For some weird reason, he thinks that buying property in Qatar shows him that he's a great American, that he's pledging his opening and dying, I guess, endorsement of Qatar being America's ally instead of Israel. That's essentially what he's trying to do. He's trying to convince people that Qatar and the Islamic world is a better ally for the United States of America than the nation of Israel. And if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you know exactly why that is extremely dangerous, because you actually know what Islam represents at its core. But he's back at it again, and like I said, if you just see the trajectory that he's going on, it's kind of hard to tell how this is going to end with Tucker Carlson. It can go one or two ways. Tucker could end up straight up converting to Islam somewhere in the next couple of years, which wouldn't surprise me one iota. Or what you can be seeing here through Tucker Carlson is kind of a spiritual realization or manifestation, if you want to call it that, of Revelation 17 and Mystery Babylon and the harlot and its union with the beast. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit more what I mean by that here in a second, but I want to play this video. We're going to break it down basically segment from segment. This is a recording from a few days ago, actually, but this is Tucker doing his best to defend Islam in the face of American distrust. Let's just call it that.
TPUSA did a poll during AmFest, or I guess it was after AmFest, and they asked the audience, what they considered to be the greatest threat to America. And they did put radical Islam at number one. I'm wondering where you think those sentiments are coming from. I mean, I've heard you say before that this is an op, and that we all know which foreign government it's actually coming from. Which government is it, and can you explain how that operation works?
So I'm only guessing. I haven't heard this whole thing, but I'm somehow guessing that he's going to blame Israel for the negative representation of Islam throughout the entire world. I'm going to guess that's probably where he's going here.
Is it, kind of lured into those
from the Israeli government? And
well, that didn't take long at all. That took no time whatsoever. I didn't even watch this video before. I saw the video. I haven't watched it specifically for this reaction. But I knew that was coming. It gets to the point where a lot of these people, and I'm sorry, it's both on the left and the right, when you know their playbook, you know exactly what's coming. So whatever they say out of their mouth is really no longer a surprise, because you know exactly where this is going. But let's Tucker make his case here to why it's Israel's fault that people don't like Islam.
and its many defenders and informal employees in the United States, of course. And I guess I would just say if that was actually, I don't know how people responded to the poll. I don't know who answered it. but, you know, I believe in measuring reality a little more empirically. And, you know, I don't know anyone in the United States in the last 24 years who's been killed by radical Islam.
So let's stop right there. If you guys did not catch that, what he said was that he doesn't know anyone in the last 24 years, I'm guessing here in the United States of America, who has ever been killed by Islam. Now, it's very, very interesting. He purposely starts his window of, well, you know, since 9/11, what happened on 9/11? Oh, yeah, the largest terrorist attack in the history of this country, and then who was responsible for it? Now, over the course of the last few years, people have tried to shift the blame away from Saudi Arabia being involved in what happened on 9/11 to Israel, because this is like the new step now. Now, every time there's an open and blatant Islamic terrorist attack within the world, the immediate reaction is from these people to be like, oh, Israel, that's a psyop that Israel did to make people hate Islam. This is how far the delusion is going. But to sit there and say that he doesn't know anyone who has been killed in the United States of America, just in the window of 24 years, is baffling. That it's so untrue, it doesn't even need to be. It almost doesn't even need to be argued. Like, it's just a blatant lie. In case you guys forgotten, what about Fort Hood? You guys remember Fort Hood? Back in 2000, I think it was like 13 people dead. Who was responsible for that? Who was responsible for the Boston bombing, or San Bernardino, or Chattanooga? Or, hey, guys, remember the Post nightclub shooting? Remember that whole situation? Wasn't there just a guy in New Orleans, like, earlier this year who killed like 10-something people, and that was inspired by ISIS? What about the guy in DC this year? So what I'm telling you is that when he's saying things like that, he's blatantly lying to you. Now, we know for a fact now where the lies are coming from. He's getting paid by the nation of Qatar to lie on behalf of the Islamic region and frame Israel as the enemy. Tucker Carlson's job is to sow distrust within the Christian right, against the nation of Israel and in support of Islamic nations. That's his sole job. So everything that comes out of his mouth in the next several months is all going to be for that single purpose, to turn the Christian right against Israel and basically move them toward a direction to supporting Islam and jihadists and the Quran and all these other things. So understand the game plan that is happening right now. There is a spiritual warfare happening, and Tucker Carlson is at the forefront of it. But let's continue.
You know, I know a lot of people who have killed themselves. A lot. I know people who've died of drug ODs, more than a few. I know people can't get jobs. None of the boys in my daughter's classes can get jobs. None of those white boys can get jobs. They're being destroyed, you know, by Adderall and video games and porn. Like, I see millions of Americans being destroyed, and none of it is at the hands of radical Islam. Is radical Islam bigger danger than OnlyFans? It's not even close. Turning some huge percentage of American women into prostitutes? That's not radical Islam doing that, actually. So anyone who believes that lie, I feel sorry for.
So radical Islam is no more dangerous than OnlyFans. Tell that to Britain, or France, or Belgium, or Turkey, or Nigeria, or Egypt, or Iran, or Syria. Do you want to continue on with this lie? Now, like I said, it gets easier to dissect when you know exactly what he's doing, but understand exactly what he's doing. There's more.
But it doesn't reflect the lived reality of anyone I've ever met in the United States. And I observe this for a living. It doesn't mean I'm right.
Again, there's been no short of 3 major terrorist attacks involving Islamists here in the United States of America this year alone. Post nightclub hasn't even been a full 10 years yet. Has not been a full 10 years. And if you want to really get down into a rabbit hole, ask yourselves, why did certain Islamic groups, claim responsibility for the Vegas attack that happened, once again, less than 10 years ago? But that's a rabbit hole you can dig in through your own time.
Right, but it means I'm not a casual observer. I'm a close observer because that's my job. And I just think that that's insane. And it would be yet another triumph of propaganda and theory over reality. So you tell people, I mean, this is the whole game. This is how, the United States has somehow tied itself to the anchor of Gaza. Like, why are we responsible for Bibi's mass murder? Well, we are now, partly because
So did you see that how he conveniently crafted the narrative of what's going on with Gaza? So keep in mind, I've said this many times before, and I will say it again. I want you guys to pay attention to this as the weeks and the months go on. The far left and the far right both hate Israel. They both despise Israel, and they both want Israel wiped out. It doesn't matter where they align on abortion or capitalism and communism or, LGBTQ rights and all this stuff. They all hate Israel. The left hates Israel, and they're massive supporters of Palestine, and the right hates Israel and wants Israel gone because they think that Israel has stolen something from them, which is the promises of Abraham. So one day, it doesn't matter where you line up politically. One day, the far left and the far right are going to come together in union due to a shared hatred of the nation of Israel, which is why I've been saying for a while, if you think that this battle is going to be fought over political lines, you are not paying attention to what is actually happening in the world right now.
Many Americans have been told over and over and over, like, your destiny is intertwined with Israel. Israel's our most important ally. There is no sense in which Israel is an important ally. It's not even an ally. It's a liability. But people have been told that again and again and again, or I'm an anti-Semite. By the way, I got the award of apparently anti-Semite of the year 2 days after I gave a speech saying anti-Semitism was immoral.
Yeah, but here's the problem. This is another little sleight of hand that, these people always try to do. It's like, no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm against the hatred of Semitic people. Then you ask him the following question. Well, who are the Semitic people? When they say they're not anti-Semitic, they're not talking about the Jews. They're talking about Ishmael's line. That is a very clever sleight of hand that people, and this is why I think another big problem you have here, because you have a lot of people like Steven Crowder and what's the guy's here, Piers Morgan, who will interview people like Nick Fuentes all the time, and they always go with the direct question. Oh, well, do you hate the Jews? Oh, well, do you hate so-and-so? And then Nick Fuentes is trained enough to dodge through those very direct questions because he's answered them 1,000 times over again. And ultimately, you do nothing but give him a platform to make him seem like he's the rational one in the room. What you have to do is that you have to look past the sleight of hands and get into the real nooks and crannies of the argument. Because when he says that, well, I'm not anti-Semitic, okay, well then who in your estimation are the Semitic people? And then go on from there. And then you see the real root cause. These people will lie straight to your face. And if you're not prepared to deal with said lies, you're going to be made a fool of.
So what does that tell you? It tells you that the people creating the propaganda and disseminating it have zero interest in the reality of any question. Of course, propagandists never care what the truth is.
Now, of course, he's thinking that he's talking about the nation of Israel and not himself.
They're merely convinced, probably with some evidence, that if you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. I don't know what to do about that. That's always been true. I don't lose a lot of sleep over it. But if you've convinced a bunch of kids who literally can't get jobs and buy houses or find wives or husbands, whose parents are divorced, who are think on OnlyFans or playing video games all day, if you've convinced them that radical Islam is their number one problem, you are the most effective propagandist in history. I mean, that's...
So, what he's doing, thanks to the people who are paying him, he is playing defense for the religion of Islam. The religion of Islam that by biblical definition is the religion of the Antichrist. Because it is the religion that denies the resurrection, the burial, and the death of Jesus Christ. They deny all three. That is the core foundation of the religion of Islam. Now, if you want to get even further into the eschatology of Islam, It matches up perfectly with the eschatology of the Antichrist, to the very point where their two hero figures, the Mahdi and the false Islamic Jesus, matches to a T the biblical description of the Antichrist and the false prophet. Keep in mind, Book of Revelation came out 520 years before Islam was ever created. But people like Tucker Carlson, who is getting paid a lot of money from the nation of Qatar, are trying to convince you, no, Islam isn't your enemy. They're actually your friend. They're a better friend than you, than the Jews, than Israel. That's what they're doing. And you have to see it for what it is.
An unbelievable feat. I haven't seen the poll. I'm taking your word for it. And again, I don't know how many people responded to it.
Yeah.
But that is deranged. And by the way, if you think radical Islam is the threat that you claim it is, I'm hardly endorsing it. I'm opposed to it. I'm against radical anything. I'm the most temperamentally moderate person.
He's literally defending nations like Qatar, Saudi Arabia. I think on his show a couple of months ago, he was talking about how great Saudi Arabia was, like how he was literally downplaying Sharia law. That there's video evidence of him doing that on the internet. You could find it very, very easily. So he actually is not against radical Islam. Radical Islam are the people who are paying him money. And they're paying him money to sow discord between Americans and the Jews. That's what's happening here. And again, this whole notion that, oh, you guys think that Islam is the problem. Again, go tell that to the 200 people who died in Spain in the train attacks. Go tell that to the numerous people who have died in London bombings over the course of the last several years, or the Manchester bombings, or the Paris attack in 2015, or the Nice attack in 2016, or the Brussels attack in 2016 as well. Or how about that Turkey attack at the airport? Or how about numerous, countless terrorist attacks that have happened in Tehran that don't even get reported globally, but happen almost every day? Like, again, Syria, Nigeria alone. This notion that we've just created Islam as the boogeyman. Islam, in the foundations of its teachings in the Quran, tells people to kill non-believers. Anyone who opposes Islam is considered marked by death. And many, many people go to great lengths to carry that out. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and be blunt about this here. There is no such thing as radical Islam. It's Islam. The lie that Islam is the religion of peace is one of the greatest lies that people have bought into over the last few decades. On top of all the LGBTQ stuff that people have lied about as well. I'm going to finish up the last part of this video.
I'm a fucking 56-year-old wasp, dude. I'm like, I am moderate, okay?
Yeah.
But I just don't like lying. But if you sincerely believe radical Islam is the greatest threat, then why aren't they asking the government? Why isn't Ben Shapiro asking the government to fully declassify the 9/11 files?
Right.
I wonder why that is. Any sense of why that might be? Serious.
So, as I mentioned earlier, he picked out Ben Shapiro, who perfectly called him out a couple of days after this whole thing went live here for doing exactly what he's doing now. But the implication here, what he's trying to get to, is that Ben Shapiro, who's a Jew, he doesn't want to declassify the 9/11 files. Why? Because he'll find out Israel was actually responsible for it. Now, even though we've declassified many files over the last 24 years to show that Saudi Arabia had more to do with the 9/11 attacks than anyone else, any other nation during that time period, there's still this lie that, oh, Israel was involved. You've probably even heard the meme, dancing Israelis, talking about these four mythical dancing Israelis who were celebrating when 9/11 happened. You can't find any video of it anywhere to support that it ever happened. Yet at the same time, Palestine, the nation that all these people are so sympathetic over their women and children, were actively celebrating the deaths of people on 9/11. We have video of that from 25 years ago, or 24 years ago, I should say. But again, Tucker Carlson doesn't like lying while he lies directly to your face. And that's where we're going to end this one here. Understand what's going on. And this is why even in churches, we need to be more vigilant about this, because this stuff is pouring into the churches and is dividing churches. And if we sit back and allow it to happen because, oh, we don't want to be viewed as sowing discord or sowing division within brethren, no, these people are the ones sowing the division. You have to be prepared to defend yourself from the division that they're sowing. Because I'm telling you guys right now, Satan is actively trying to divide the church because he knows that the time before the tribulation is very, very short. And if we don't smarten up to what's happening in the world right now and how much time we actually have, you're not going to be prepared for what happens next, because things get very, very bad. And guess what? Islam plays a very, very big role in those things getting very, very bad. Pay attention. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Adios, goodbye, good night.